Up next, we shed light on the ongoing global energy crisis, including its causes and consequences, as well as possible countermeasures. And for details, I now have Mr. Stefan Schork of the Schork Group live on the line. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Schork.
It's great to be here, Sunny. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Schork, let's start off then with your thoughts on the causes behind the current energy crisis.
Yes, we have to keep in mind that just a year and a half ago, oil prices here in the United States were trading at minus $40 a barrel. Of course, they got down to that level because we had too much supply and we did not have nearly enough demand to take that supply off of the market. Therefore, in the last year and a half, the producers have been doing and have acted accordingly. That is, they've reined in investment and they've cut back on production. Now, the rebound in demand this year has caught the market off guard. So our ability to bring oil, natural gas, and coal to the market is substandard at this point because demand is kicking up in all avenues around the globe. So clearly, we are at a pace now where demand is simply outpacing supply. And this is causing a great concern as we go into the peak demand seasons for this winter.
Right, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere. Mr. Schork,
Yes.
would you say our efforts perhaps to go green are also to blame for the recent jumps in energy prices, given the shift from fossil fuels to sustainable energy sources? I mean, are we witnessing the results of greenflation, so to speak?
Yes, absolutely. And this was, of course, foreseeable. That is to say that here in the United States, this administration, when we look at what's been codified in the DNC platform, this is the most unfriendly White House that this industry has ever seen. And of course, there is a big push to decarbonize. So as Western oil and gas companies decarbonize, what you're doing is taking resiliency out of the market. So every nuclear station you shut down, every coal plant you shut down, every natural gas pipeline you oppose, you are not able to respond to the market. Now, the environmental movement is making a zero-sum game. There certainly is a place for renewables in the global economy. For instance, here in the United States, solar works very well in Southern California. Wind works very well in the prairie states. We also have hydro, which works very well in the Pacific Northwest. But that's a problem because Mother Nature doesn't always agree with you. So going into last summer, we had a 14% decrease in hydroelectric capacity because we simply did not get enough rain in the Pacific Northwest. Currently in the UK, the wind is not blowing, so those windmills are not generating power. So when the when it doesn't rain, when the sun doesn't shine, or when the wind doesn't blow, you need a fossil fuel that you will able to turn around and turn on. So as we begin to shift away from fossil fuels, we do not have that resiliency anymore. And as we continue to divert funds away from fossil fuel infrastructure plays towards green energy, we're going to take further resiliency out of the market, and we're really jeopardizing our energy security going forward. So yes, when we do get unexpected weather events, you are going to get unexpected jumps in prices. So this is coming at a significant cost. And of course, it is contributing to the runaway inflation that we are seeing around the globe right now.
Right. And against that backdrop, how is, Mr. Schork, U.S. authorities seeking to tackle this bottleneck in the supply of energy resources to its economy, or to their economy, that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're not doing ourselves any favor. Heading into 2020, we are on a 4-year decline in energy imports. And in fact, at this time last year in the United States, we were a net exporter of crude oil and petroleum products. So for all intents and purposes, the United States was energy independent a year ago. We, in 1 year later, are now more dependent on oil imports than we have been in the past 3 years. So the efforts that are being made right now by the government, look, there really isn't a lot of options other than, and this idea was floated a couple of weeks ago, that is to say, releasing oil, crude oil, from this country's strategic petroleum reserve. That idea was quickly put to the side, but it's certainly something that's out there, and it's a sign of weakness because simply there's not that much oil that would be able to stem the amount of demand in this market. What this administration should be doing is they should be going to North American producers here in the United States, because we are producing 2 million barrels a day fewer crude oil today than we were just 2 years ago. So we could go ahead and encourage our own industry to open up the taps. but we're not. We're throwing roadblocks to our own industry, and we're going to OPEC, and we're asking OPEC to increase their production. That is clearly a negotiation from a side of weakness, and the market is responding to that, and the market is pushing oil prices higher in response.
Right. Mr. Shork, Russia is the world's second largest producer of natural gas, after the US, that is, and it is Europe's largest gas supplier, having reportedly provided, I believe, 43% of the EU's gas imports just last year. Do you see such Russian status in terms of energy resources as perhaps serving to boost its geopolitical presence?
Oh, absolutely. We're looking at a situation where, as I've said before, that as Western oil companies decarbonize, we are handing the mantle over to the state-run oil and gas companies. So we are making OPEC, we're making OPEC Plus, that is including Russia. We're making these producers great again, to the point where now our demand, fossil fuel demand, is only going to increase for at least the next 10 years. And as we shift away from oil, those who are investing in oil right now, the OPEC nations, other state-owned oil companies, and Russia, certainly are in an advantageous place over the next 10 years. And we had a situation here across the pond here in Europe, where the EU actually came and they cut down the supply of carbon permits that industry was able to use. And what this did was push the price of carbon credits up 140%. Now, the goal of the EU was to push industry out of coal consumption, and they succeeded. But the problem is they pushed them out of coal consumption into natural gas consumption, and hence we don't have enough natural gas, and this puts Russia in a very advantageous place. Right now, or last week, natural gas prices in Europe were trading at the equivalent of $230 a barrel oil. So now what has happened? You've pushed them out of coal, and the market has pushed these users out of natural gas, and now they've pushed them into oil derivatives to generate power. So it's had a knock-on effect, and it's pushing all fossil fuel prices higher. And anyone who produces a fossil fuel, like Russia, is going to benefit from this situation.
Right. Having said that, Mr. Shork, do you believe there's an affordable, perhaps green solution to this current energy crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, solar, wind, hydro, they're all great, and they work, and they work in specific market areas, but they are not the sole answer. Nuclear is your best answer. It's your cleanest energy source out there, and it is your most reliable source. So there certainly is a place at the table for the nuclear industry, and there certainly is a place at the table for the natural gas industry, which is, yes, it's a fossil fuel, but it is your cleanest fossil fuel. It is a fuel that is in great abundance and affordable. So when we're looking at an eco-friendly environment, we have to use all options. It cannot be a zero-sum game. As we said, renewables are great, technology is improving, battery technology is improving, but we also have to live up to the fact that for at least another generation, fossil fuels and, of course, nuclear are certainly a part of the answer if we can get an agreement on both sides of the argument. And the problem is we're so divisive, especially here in the United States, that seems like a very big ask at this point.
I see. One final question, Mr. Short, before you go. What
Yes.
are your prospects with regard to the current challenges brought on by the energy crisis? How long do you suppose will we have to endure these hardships?
Well, I think it's going to come down to at least this winter. The economy is still chugging along, but it faces three big challenges, and those are inflation, inflation, and inflation. So right now we have inflation in this country running on an annualized basis of 6.5%, which means our real incomes are falling by 2%. So going into this winter, we simply do not have enough supply. We do not have enough heating oil. We do not have enough propane. In Europe, we do not have enough natural gas. In Asia, we do not have enough natural gas. We do not have enough coal. So we're looking at a very challenging winter going forward. Now, the good news is in economics, high prices are the best cure for high prices. We are seeing those high prices. We're going to continue to see high prices through the winter. But by the spring next summer, I will suspect that the market will respond to these high prices. And that is to say, they will get product to the market, but it's going to be at least one season away. So buckle up. It's going to be a very difficult winter in the Northern Hemisphere.
A very cold winter, I see. All right, Mr. Shork, thank you very much for making the time to join us live at this hour with your insights.
Thank you, Sunny.